Hi, my name is Zanae Dixon, and I'm going to be responding to the Unit 2 Application Exam Part 1 in this video. So to begin with, we're asked in the Part 1, we're going to be talking more about poetic language and literary devices. The first question we're posed with today is how has the language of the poem been expressive and unified, and what figures of speech are used in this poem? So to start today's analysis, I have to clarify that the poem that I have chosen for this project is called Won't You Celebrate With Me by Lucille Clifton. Now, knowing this, she's been an inspirational, absolutely inspirational audience, just a woman, for the audience itself and who she prescribes her poems to, she speaks volume, both back then in her time and in today. The reason this is so potent when it comes to her audience, however, is because the language that she uses speaks directly to an audience, the African American community. Not just the African American community, but also the colored body of women at large. First and foremost, when we talk about unification here, we have to start by looking at what Chapter 8 and 9 has to say about it. We're going to be looking through the Performance Studies, Peleus and Schaeffer, the Interpretation of Aesthetic Text 2nd edition book, and within this book it states first in Chapter 8 that expressive language moves beyond pragmatic and instrumental concerns on page 113, or 113. What this means for us is that when we come to language, we have to see first who speaks the language and secondly who's the intended audience. In this case, based off of Lucille Clifton poem, her poem specifically denotes itself to the African American community at large, and specifically women, or as we can read in the poem, if we want direct quotes here, if you look in the lines within her poem, the non-white woman who had no model specifically, as she states within her words. So that means that her language itself is meant to move the emotions of that community. But secondly, chapter 9 goes on to talk about more the sound addiction of poetry itself on page 114. And when talking about sound addiction, it creates this sense of rhythm, pattern, stanza, all through the sound addiction. All these different aspects of the poem can be utilized to denote a sense of unification. In this case, this poem is written in what we call sonnet form. Because of that, the sonnet itself usually is used, and it's denoted based by its iambic perimeter, and the sonnets herself are very short. The stanzas are very, very, very short, yet it's like every 3 lines she ends with punctuation, which denotes the sense that her thoughts keep on coming. She's trying to convey a sense of urgency and a sense of seriousness to her audience through her lines and stanzas. Not only that, we see that although the poem speaker does not use colloquial language, she speaks casually and very much from the heart. So she's not trying to do a very formal, serious poem, but rather speak candidly about her experiences to her intended audience. Now, with that being the case, what stuck out to you in terms of context, structure, and form? And can I identify the point of view? What sequencing patterns emerge in the poem and what sound patterns are present? Now, the poem again is written in sonnet form based on its iambic perimeter. We can see that obviously. But this poem is likely written from the perspective of a Black woman, given the details and background that we know about the audience and the writer, Lucille Clifton, and the time at which it was written. We can denote that largely this was indeed an African American woman. We can tell that this woman's likely middle age, and we can see that because during the 60s when this poem was written, most women who were middle-aged, working class, usually had hustbands married around this time, were the ones that struggled the most in our systemic, I guess you could say, spherical encapsulation of society. The systemic pressure put on middle-aged African-American women who were not only mothers, workers, in lots of cases, homemakers, was very true. And lastly, the repetition in the first and the 11th lines not only show that she is serious about wanting people to celebrate with her and understand her struggles, but also the use of rhetorical questioning all throughout the poem itself shows that she's both trying to get you to understand her perspective as well, and also write from the perspective of her struggles to shape her sense of self that she was not able to get during this time. Thank you.